At this hour, the city of Minot is considering taking over completion of the Broadway Circle project from Project B. That project is currently under construction in the 1900 block of South Broadway, and it aims to provide shelter for families in the area. But Project B is now facing financial challenges of its own. Project B announced back in 2021 that they would be taking over the project after Lutheran Social Services of North Dakota began winding down its operations. Project B then closed abruptly in December of last year amid ongoing financial issues. It was able to reopen its warming center to clients roughly 2 weeks later. In a memo to city leaders, Minot City Manager Harold Stewart recommended that the city complete the Broadway Circle due to federal funding that's tied to the project. The City Council is considering the matter at its meeting right now, and we'll have updates tonight as to what they decide on KMOT First News at 10.